Hello, BookTube. Who's up for a little mail? Let's take a look at the mail. See what we can do. We don't have any boxes, but we don't know what will be interesting and what won't be. Let's see. I get... Oh, very nice. Okay, we start off with a serious work of history from the new year. This is February. This is Islamic Empires. Very nice. By Justin Morozzi. Islamic civilization was once the envy of the world. From a succession of glittering cosmopolitan cities, Islamic empires lorded it over the Middle East, North Africa, Central Asia, and swaths of the Indian subcontinent, while Europe cowered feebly at the margins. Okay. For centuries, the caliphate was both ascendant on the battlefield and triumphant in the battle of ideas. Its cities unrivaled powerhouses of artistic grandeur, commercial power, spiritual sanctity, and forward-looking thinking in which nothing was off limits. Okay, we're hitting some problems here, but this is still the pub sheet. This is not the book itself, and even the problems might be just nuanced versions of what's going on in the book. There was plenty that was off limits, of course. Heresy, recusancy, apostasy, all of that was off limits. And also, I don't think there was any cowering going on in Europe. in any of the areas that are being described here, I don't think there was any cowering going on. This is a history of this rich and diverse civilization told through the greatest cities over the 15 centuries of Islam, from its earliest beginnings in Mecca in the 7th century to the astonishing rise of Doha in the 21st. Fantastic. Okay, well, I have just the venue to pitch this, so I'm looking forward to reviewing this in the new year. That's great. That's fantastic. Okay, we're off to a fine start. The work of history. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, okay. All right, good, great. This is also a 2020 release. This is Joanne McNeill. It's called Lurking, How a Person Became a User. And it got a great shout out in a recent issue of the New York Review of Books. A reviewer was, I think, reviewing the new Edward Snowden book and mentioned this book, saying its praises even though it's not out yet. It doesn't come out until February. And it got my attention. I'm sure it got a lot of other people's attention too. Yeah, okay, well, no, there we go. In a recent epic review of Edward Snowden's new book, Jonathan Latham plugged and briefly discussed the brilliant technology and cultural writer Joanne McNeill's terrific forthcoming book, Lurking. In this book, McNeill gives us a perspective-shifting personal history of the internet from the early 90s, from the beginnings of the internet roughly as we know it today, up to the present. But Lurking is not a book focused on amazing technological advances or game-changing startups. Some of that is here, of course, but Lurking is first and foremost a cultural history from the perspective of the user. It tells the stories of how users shape the internet and how, in turn, the internet has shaped its users. Fantastic. I am absolutely sold. This is exactly the sort of thing I love to read. Well, not that there's only one such thing. There are many such things I love to read, but this, anything that is examining, this is obviously a gigantic, tectonic, historic event that is unfolding in front of our eyes, in the active memory of quite a few people who are watching this channel who remember a world where there was no internet, where there were no computers, where there were no smartphones. And all of that is viral now. It is absolutely in the bloodstream of mankind. It's not, it used to be, I don't even know, not that long ago, 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, technological writers used to like to repeat the quip that don't get too caught up in the wonders of the internet because 60% of the world hasn't made a phone call. And maybe then it was true. That's not true anymore. Everybody has a phone. Everybody has a phone. And phones are no longer just phones. They are the world. They are the internet. So, and including that can't help but have a tectonic effect on the species. And so any book that examines this thing as it's unfolding, of course, we won't know. You won't be able to write, or, serious history needs time. You need the perspective that only time can give you to do it. But these dispatches from this weird event as it's unfolding, I'm fascinated in all of them. Great, fantastic. Okay, so Lurking is coming out of the new year. You'll hear about all these things from me in due course. But let's see what this next one is. Fairly heavy, could be a finished copy. Oh yes, it's a finished copy. Okay, good. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, okay. I don't have the authority to mandate moratoriums on book subjects, and I don't think I would do it even if I did have the authority, because people surprise you. So this is an October book. This is late getting to me. This is a nice, well-designed thing from Yale University Press, and it's called Oblivion or Glory, 1921 and the Making of Winston Churchill by David Stafford. And it would be very tempting to put a moratorium on Churchill books. We don't need another word written about Winston Churchill in the 21st century. Wait until 2100, and then you can write about Winston Churchill again. Instead, there are probably 200 books every publishing season, total of probably 1,000 books a year, which is kind of ridiculous. I'm sure in 2019, I'm sure that in one press or another, somewhere in the Western world, there have probably been 5 books on just 1921. And the only reason that I say that I wouldn't call for a moratorium is that even Churchill books, I have been pleasantly surprised. Not often. It doesn't happen often working with Winston's menagerie, all that sort of stuff. But let's see what this one is. After the tragic consequences of his involvement in the catastrophic Dardanelles campaign of World War I, his involvement. He was involved with the Dardanelles campaign. Churchill's political career appeared finished. He was widely regarded as little more than a bombastic and unpredictable buccaneer. But in 1921, an unexpected inheritance heralded a series of events that laid the foundations of his future greatness. Renowned Churchill scholar David Stafford delves into the statesman's life in 1921, a year in which his political career revived. Okay, all right, well, it's a little late getting to me, but I'll dive into it all the same. There are a whole bunch of aspects to Churchill in the 20s that books about Churchill in the 20s virtually never mention. And I just will have to see if this one does. You read it. If you're somebody like me and I've read just yard arms of stuff on Winston Churchill, then and you read a book where the author is, you get 50 pages in and you're thinking, okay, now is the time when you would bring up subject X, Y, or Z if you're going to write about Churchill in the 1920s or in the late 19-teens, and you haven't done it yet. Okay, so, and then you get to page 100 and you say, okay, well, now you're writing about that year, these years, and you're writing about people who were involved in subjects X, Y, and Z, and you're still not mentioning it. And then you get to the end of the book and you realize, okay, you didn't mention any of it, so this is not history. And I don't know what this is. This is PR of some kind or other. I don't know what this is if you are going to write about this subject and then not write about it. And I get that a lot, not just with Churchill, with lots of people, although Churchill and Washington bring it out more than anybody, Lincoln too. And when you're done with something like that, you actually, if you're me, I actually finish books like that and sometimes think and sometimes say out loud, I don't know what I just read. It wasn't history because it was actively lying, but it wasn't fiction because it has a long list of footnotes in the back. So we will see. We will see what this book does. If Churchill's behavior in the late teens and early 20s, his post-World War I behavior, his immediately post-World War I behavior, was, to put it as euphemistically as possible, not free of evil. And you can scan the details of Churchill biographies, Martin Gilbert or whoever, with a fine-tooth comb, and you'll hardly see any hint of it, of a desperate man willing to do anything. We shall see. We shall see. Okay, all right. Okay, this is a 2019 book. Yes, this is a paperback release. Yes, okay, yeah, this is a December release. We've seen this already. This is Paramula, The Story of a Goat. By the author of One Part Woman, that was liked by a lot of people on BookTube. And this is it's what is this? We've seen this already. We saw this a long time ago. The author wrote this in a 3-month flash of inspiration. It is considerably shorter than a NaNoWriMo book, and he had 3 months to do it, so let that be a lesson to you. In this brilliant novel, we'll see, the author tells the story of a helpless young goat lost in a world it naively misunderstands. Remember this? We heard all about this before, and this is a December 10th release. I always feel sorry for books like that. I have a feeling that I mean, some fiction reviewers in the country, the tiny handful of professional fiction reviewers that are still left, will probably be scrounging around for stuff in December. So this might get some attention that it wouldn't have gotten in November. But either way, it's December is such a cruel month for books. Let's see here. Let's see what this next one is. Another finished copy. Oh my. Okay. Yeah, this is also another finished copy. It's from the folks at Harvard University Press. Don't need that. Let's see what this is. This is out already. This is What Remains, Bringing America's Military Missing Home from the Vietnam War, in which Sarah Wagner looks at the U.S. military and government's efforts to account for MIAs in the Vietnam War. The author began research on this book back in 2008, working closely with veterans, current members of the military, policymakers, and forensic scientists, as well as families and loved ones of the missing. I think I got an advance copy of this. It's going to be so heartbreaking to read, and it's it's out any day now, so I should bump it up on the list for a nonfiction November. It doesn't all have to be pleasant. So let's see here. Let's see what this next one is. Sorry, Frida's going nuts over on the couch. Just nuts. Legs pumping up in the air. Okay, this is also from Harvard. This is also a November release. This is also nonfiction. This is called Neptunes Laboratory, Fantasy, Fear, and Science at Sea by Anthony Adler. An eyewitness to profound change affecting marine environments on the Newfoundland coast. The author argues that the history of our relationship with the ocean lies as much in what we imagine as in what we discover. Okay. We have long been fascinated with oceans, seeking to pierce the profundity of their depths. In studying the history of marine science, we learn about ourselves. In this book, explores the ways in which scientists, politicians, and the public have invoked oceans environments in imagining the fate of humankind and the planet, conjuring ideal world fantasies along fears of our species' weakness and ultimate demise. So is this going to involve science fiction as well as climatology? Is it going to? There is no entry in the index for Waterworld. Well, I guess I'll find out. This is a November book. I'm reading lots and lots of nonfiction in November. And I have spent an enormous amount of time at sea. So, all right, great. Those two go to the top of the list. Let's see here. Let's see if this next one is. It's also a finished copy. Wow, I'm getting a lot of 2019 stuff. This is also a November book. We saw this already. This is by Jorge Comensal. This is The Mutations, finished copy of The Mutations, which is the author's debut. This is an English language translation. Don't I remember this being an English language translation of a book that's kind of old? Yeah, it was written in 2016. It's now got an English language translation by Charlotte Whittle. And let's see here. This is a story about cancer, about suffering, about grief, about the ways in which sickness often renders us untethered from reality, about relinquishing control when it is desired most, about the ever absurd question mark that is being alive. Rare is the novel that can take all of this and weave it together with lucid moments of hilarity that offered some much-needed belly laughs of relief. Okay, Okay, we shall see. This is, I have had the advanced copy of this, and I haven't got to it at all. I'm still swamped with October books. That's got to end. Uh, uh, but let's see what this next one is. This can wait, I think, until December because it's quite blatantly fiction. Let's see. Oh no, more fiction in November. Oh, this is also a November release. This is Murder Off the Page. This is a finished copy of something we've seen before. This is Murder Off the Page by Con Lehane. And this is a 42nd Street library mystery. It's a library. It's a murder mystery set in a library. This is the next in the 42nd Street Library series, where librarian and amateur sleuth Raymond Ambler returns and pries into the mystery and illicit double life of a perfect suburban doctor. A note from bartender Brian McNulty, Raymond Ambler's friend, confidant, and sometimes advisor, sets the librarian sleuth off on a murder investigation, one that he pursues reluctantly until a second murder upends the world he knows it. Upends the world as he knows it. That should have been. The second victim is a lady friend of McNulty's, and the prime suspect is McNulty himself. Okay, well, I don't think that I've read the earlier ones, and Murder in the Manuscript Room. Murder in the Manuscript Room is and Murder at the 42nd Street Library. Those two, I don't think I've read them. I think I would remember that, and hence I'm not sure to what extent library business is involved in these things. No idea. Gonna have to wait until December to find out. So this is Murder Off the Page, new library-centered murder mystery. We have Mutations, The Mutations, a debut novel translated into English about cancer and surviving cancer. We have Neptunes Laboratory, not only about mankind's fascination with oceans, but also about mankind's reimagining of oceans. We have What Remains, probably a very stark book about searching and maybe finding the remains of Vietnam veterans, forensic scientists. When you mention forensic scientists, you're in for a rough ride. Then Oblivion or Glory, Winston Churchill in 1921. The Story of a Goat, the newest translation by the author of, what was the name of the thing? One Part Woman. Then we have Islamic Empires, big sort of thing that is just my cup of tea for writing on the other side of the world. I have an actually Islamic audience, and I tend to write about books like this for them, so I will do my best. And Lurking, a new study of the internet from the user's point of view. Those are coming out in 2020, so let's see. So yeah, only two of these things are coming out in 2020. All the rest is 2019. Great, fantastic. We'll fill out my shelves. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, Book 2.